What's up, friends? And before we break down everything you need to know from the Broncos' third training camp practice, I need to tell you about Strava Craft Coffee, and subscribe and save right now to the delicious CBD Strava Craft Coffee, and you'll get 20% off your purchase. I'm Zac Stevens, joined by my main man, Ryan Koenigsberg. Andrew Mason's going to join us soon. And before we get that breakdown from Ryan on what happened and the first padded practice from Broncos, got to tell you guys about our presenting sponsor, MSU Denver. MSU Denver Online puts a dynamic education at your fingertips without forcing you to decide between earning a degree and living your life. And as this whole world has gone remote, just like us right here, MSU Denver has already mastered the art of online learning. So make sure to check them out over at msudenver.edu/online to see all they have to offer, including over 40 online and hybrid programs and 750 classes. My boy, Ryan, what is up from Dove Valley? How's it going?
It's great, man. It's great to be out here. I have to say it was tough not, being the third guy. I hit third. I decided to go in the Charlie Blackmon role here, and it was tough watching you guys go here without me. It was great to be out here today, and as I tweeted out, I got to live my pandemic-long dream of watching Jeudy run routes in person.
And so tell me, did it live up to all of your dreams these past 4 months?
Yeah, it was that and more. Zac, it's unbelievable how much separation that this kid can create in such a short amount of time. He runs a slant late in the practice. I think it's the last period of practice. He runs a slant, and Drew Lock kind of sidearms it around a defensive lineman, and it hits Jerry Jeudy in stride. And I tweeted this out. It was half sarcastic, but half true. I tried to look and see, who did Jerry Jeudy beat in coverage. I wanted to include that in my tweet. I don't know who the closest receiver or the closest corner was to him. He's that elusive in a phone booth. He breaks you off so quick and gets open so quickly. It's just it's absurd.
Man, so I take it that Drew Lock had a little more time today than yesterday in order to let Jerry Jeudy have those routes develop, even if they were just quick slants.
Yeah, I thought the offensive line did a pretty darn good job today. There were a few times where he was under pressure, but I don't think he got sacked one time or even, training camp sacked. He did a really good job of kind of moving around, but he didn't have to get rid of it that quickly most of the time. There was one play early in practice where he had a low snap from Austin Schlottman, and he kind of had to look up, and luckily Noah Fant was coming on a crosser right away, and he just dumped it off to him before, things kind of went wild. But I thought the offensive line, from what we heard from you yesterday and how much they struggled, it must have been a really good bounce back practice for them today. I assume they took that kind of personally, how off they were yesterday, and they came out and did a good job protecting Drew today.
Well, I do think it's important to notice some trends going on. The offensive line was fine on Friday, from what I understand, from what Mace told us. Austin Schlottman was the starting center then. I believe he was the starting center again today. Is that right, Ryan?
That is correct.
And yesterday it was Patrick Morris. I'm not putting an entire offensive line performance
it's all on Patrick Morris.
I'm not doing that, but it is interesting to follow those trends. And of course, Lloyd Cushenberry, for a third straight day, was he running with the twos again?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, for the most part. And you have to imagine that he's going to get elevated up. I know that's a huge question that a lot of people ask me in my mentions. They're asking it probably on here. And it's got to happen eventually. To me, this is still a team that's operating with two backups on their offensive line. I think when all is said and done, it's going to be Lloyd Cushenberry. It's going to be DeMar Dotson on the right side. And so until then, I'm going to actually hold judgment, give them the benefit of the doubt. And, when you mix that with a good performance today, you should be encouraged, I think. And then you think of Austin Schlottman, and you make that good point, Zac, that 2 days now the offensive line has had nice days. He's been in the center of that. As much as you and I and probably a lot of people think that Lloyd Cushenberry is a shoo-in, if Austin Schlottman, the guy who's being given the veteran nod here, goes and takes that job and runs with it, it's going to be hard for Lloyd Cushenberry to run and take it. And I think most coaches, if they have a veteran, I'm putting that in quotes because it's not like Austin Schlottmann's been playing for years and years, but if they have a veteran that they can trust and they can actually give a rookie some time to learn, I think they'd actually prefer it that way. So, I think it's a little too early to talk about Austin Schlottmann, taking the job and running away with it. But you stack good days one after another out here in training camp. That's what it's all about. And if he continues to do that, I think, it's going to be tough for Lord Cushenberry to jump in there.
Well, and that's what Vic said after practice, too. He said this is way too early to decide who's in the lead right now. They're rotating. Cushenberry hasn't even got a shot. But, Ryan, you're right. If Austin Schlottmann takes this job and runs with it, that would only be a good thing for the Broncos. It would mean that he took that pretty ginormous step up from last year.
Absolutely. And, I've always thought he was a solid player. He's someone you wanted to keep around when you're going through your roster and you're looking for who you're going to cut. You usually don't, you don't cut Austin Schlottmann. And that's been about the best we could say about him going up into this point. But, again, we talk about Drew Lock at the end of last season and the cast of characters that he was running behind back there. Austin Schlottmann was one of those guys, and Austin Schlottmann's one of those guys who you didn't end up coming away saying, oh my God, that guy, is a mess back there, and Drew Lock has no chance. So maybe he takes that opportunity that he had, builds on it. He obviously built some goodwill with Mike Munchak, with Vic Fangio. I know Munch likes him. This is what it's. These guys deserve opportunities. You bring these guys in as undrafted free agents. You draft them for a reason. You got to give them a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Ryan, if I understand right, Vic did a little thing different in practice today. Instead of ones going up against ones and twos against twos, threes against threes, was the first team offense going up second team defense and vice versa?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to get to as the headline here is about Drew Lock lighting it up. There is a small asterisk, which is fitting as the Avs and Nuggets are in the playoffs and Nuggets playing as we speak. Go Nugs. There's a small asterisk on what Drew Lock did today, but you know what? There was a time, Zach, when you used to have Trevor Siemian or Paxton Lynch with the ones going against the twos, and the whole narrative was, oh man, that first team defense has just been smoking them every single day. We got to give these guys a break and let them gain some confidence. Like literally, like a third grader going to like a social skills class. Just trying to get them some confidence. And this is not that. And to be honest, usually when we had those days, Zach, where it was the ones with one of those guys against the twos, we ended up saying, yeah, they looked good. It wasn't exactly, a carving show, and that's what this was. Drew Lock threw down the prime rib, got out the knife, and just started carving it up.
Was it juicy on the inside?
Yeah, juices everywhere.
Jerry Jeudy was carving him up, huh?
Yes, exactly. Courtland Sutton was probably the wide receiver of the day, despite Jerry Jeudy having a couple flashes. You can really tell the chemistry that's built between Drew Lock and Courtland Sutton, and you assume Jerry Jeudy will get there eventually, but it's evident that Drew and Courtland have been together for an extended period of time now, and he just trusts him. There's a moment in 7-on-7 where there's just nothing really there, and Drew Lock looks over and he sees he's got Isaac Yiadom on Courtland Sutton, and he's just like, yeah, that's my choice. Like, I'm just going to throw it over there. And unfortunately, Court didn't come down with that one, but you can see the trust there. The very first play of 11-on-11, Drew drops back, and there's a lot of traffic in the middle of the field. This wasn't an open scenario, but he lofts it over the linebackers, under the safeties. Courtland had beat his man, and it just dropped right in. And the funny thing is, as soon as it left Drew's hand, I was like, oh no, because it looked like there was too much air under it for how much traffic was in that area. And even all the guys on the defensive sideline started yelling pick. Like they just, you see a floaty ball going into traffic and everyone, thinks they're about to get a pick, and it just drops right in the bucket for Courtland. And they were kind of off and running from there. Later in the practice, they had a great little play action, sucked in the safeties, Courtland on a little flag route. Drew didn't throw the best ball of the day, but just put it in a spot where Court could go up and get it. And that's what that's what we've been talking about for so long. Just put it in a spot where he can go up and get it. You are literally never in the NFL going to have a matchup with Courtland Sutton that you don't like in terms of putting the ball up in the air and him going up and getting it. He's 6'4", like no one even comes close to that when it comes to secondary players in the NFL. So I love to see the relationship between those two budding. Drew got the tight ends involved a bit today. Jake Butt, again, looked good out there. So yes, was it ones versus twos? Of course, but you got to take that and run with it. You have to go out there and dominate. I think Drew started 6 of 7 throwing the ball. Like, he went out there and dominated. That's what you need to do when you're going against those guys. And I think that's how you take a practice like this and actually turn it into that momentum that we used to be talking about when guys like Trevor and Paxton were back there.
Yeah, exactly. That's great to hear. Now, Ryan, on the flip side, was it the same? Was the first team defense carving up the second team offense?
I got to be honest, no. I guess it was there was nothing flashy. You didn't have picks. You didn't have a lot of sacks. You had them stuffing some runs, but Levante Bellamy did get loose a couple times. And he looks like he needs a better number to me. Like, he just doesn't.
32.
Yeah, 32 does not fit him. It makes him look slower. He's got saggy sleeves out there.
I'm not gonna lie. I said, who is this fullback out here lining up at running back?
Yes, and he's not even big, but that number for some reason just makes him look like that. But other than that, man, he looked good. It's funny, Zach, when you're not out. I don't know, when we've been away from the team for so long, it just changes your perspective on so much. Like, we've haven't talked about certain guys in so long that you get out here and you're like, that guy's still on the team. and that's how I feel about Royce Freeman. Like, you just see him out there and you're like, oh yeah, that's Royce, 28, still here. Okay. Like, I'll just name off some guy, DeMarcus Walker. I was like, oh, DeMarcus Walker's still around. Certain guys, I don't know. You just see them, and we're so used to being with these guys through OTAs, through minicamp. Like, you remember who's here. You just come out here for the first time in months since you've seen these guys, and a bunch of these guys are just hanging around. I feel so bad for Juwan Winfrey, because exactly what happened to him in his college career is starting to happen to him in his NFL career. Super talented kid, really smart, great route runner, just can't get healthy. And he's got Tyree Cleveland out there gunning for his job. And so it was interesting just being out here and just getting refreshed with the team. But to go back to your initial question, I kind of wish I would have seen more dominance from the first team defense going up against the second team offense. It's not like Jeff Driscoll was out there carving up. I still thought he was Kevin Hogan for 78% of the practice, which is not a compliment. So keep that in mind. But it just didn't feel like they were incapable of doing anything because they were going up against a wall.
Okay, well, that's interesting, and that's certainly something that we're going to follow. Now, Ryan, pads on. That means you can evaluate running backs at least a little better. What did you see between Royce Freeman and Phillip Lindsay?
And Melvin Gordon, I assume?
Oh, yes, of course. It's not Royce Freeman.
Well, Phil got the first carry of the day, which I think is not nothing. And he also probably had the carry of the day. A little bit of a zone concept, that one cut that Broncos fans probably just love to see that so much. And Phil had it going to the right, bam, hit that right foot, went back to the left, had the whole team oohing and ahhing because he hit it so hard and just exploded through the hole and went off for a big gain. And that was probably the biggest run of the day. Melvin had a couple nice plays, a couple nice runs, but I would say, you're right that you get a little bit of a better evaluation once these guys come out here with pads. I thought Phil definitely had a little extra pep in his step, and I think that's probably what you're going to see throughout this training camp is Phil is a one-gear guy. He only knows how to go his hardest. And especially with a little bit of competition under his nose, he's probably going to turn that up even harder. I didn't necessarily get that vibe from Melvin Gordon. I think Melvin Gordon is a guy who, knows that he can ball, knows that he just needs to get his body ready come week one, and is not exactly out here trying to, I don't know, I don't want to say not trying to take every carry to the house, but just maybe not trying to send a message with every carry. And I just think that's all Phil knows. He's trying to send a message with every single carry. Todd Davis clipped him pretty hard on a little crossing route, and of course it gets up and they get in each other's face and then they slapped hands. But Phil just goes, like he's so high motor, he's so high energy, and I think it's going to be kind of difficult for Melvin Gordon to look better than Philip Lindsay in a training camp practice.
So from what you just said, all of that sounds like Melvin Gordon easily had the better day between the two of them.
Exactly. It looks like we have Mason here, so let's bring on our guy here. The comment section has been just begging for Mace ever since we started here, so let's bring on Mace.
It has, because I see my boys.
Well, Mace, do I need to welcome you properly, my boy?
Hey, how are you guys? Hopefully, the connection will not cause me to lose my cool and exasperation the way I did. Of course, we already got a comment referring to that great moment yesterday. So, yeah, it's funny to hear you talk about Phil and Melvin, RK, because it doesn't surprise me that they're showing things a little bit differently, because like the style of runner, of course, that they are is different. And when Melvin kind of gets going and he gets into full gallop, it's almost kind of like he's gliding sometimes, because he runs upright and he's got that kind of long stride. So sometimes with Melvin, and this goes back to even watching him at Wisconsin behind that offensive line, I think it almost looks a little effortless to him at times when he's out there. You know what I'm saying? Once he gets into fifth gear and through that hole.
Absolutely. Yeah. I definitely see what you're saying. And man, it's only going to be good. This is only going to make Philip Lindsay even better, because Ryan, he always has that fire, that chip on his shoulder, but now he's just going to really have that every single day.
Yeah, no, Melvin looks good. It's not to take anything away from him. He can cruise, and I like that word glide. I noticed that with him. I noticed a bit with Jerry Jeudy, and that's a good characteristic to have. But like I said, it's just, I think that, certain veterans approach training camp in different ways. And today, and maybe it's been different for you guys when you've been out here. Today, it just felt like Melvin Gordon is a guy who likes to treat training camp as a way to get his body ready to get into shape and that sort of thing. Whereas Philip Lindsay is just, he's a man on a mission every time he gets the ball in his hands.
Well, it makes sense from what Melvin said yesterday. Melvin said he's still getting to the altitude. So maybe he literally is just getting his body ready for the season in that sense.
That's a great point, Zach. I agree with you there. And it sort of it comes with 6 years of experience, having been a bell cow back. And even though he didn't have as much work at Wisconsin as Monte Ball, when they did put him out there in 2014, the last campaign before he turned pro, he was a heavy workload guy. So this is somebody who, for the last 6 years or so, has had to focus on saying, okay, how do I make sure I'm doing the work I need to do, but that I am still in the kind of shape that allows me to flourish in November and December, rather than just getting out there in September and kind of petering out. So, I don't think it's a lack of effort on Melvin's part. I think it's just that he knows what he needs to do to make sure that he doesn't fade down the stretch. It's part of the maturity that comes with being a pretty seasoned pro at all this.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Ryan, I need an O-pop and a D-pop. An offensive player of practice and the defensive player of practice.
Offensive player of practice, I'll probably go with Drew Lock. He was just really crisp, man. The way the ball flies out of his hand from sideline to sideline is art sometimes. The spiral's so tight. He was really crisp. He hit everything that was open. I don't really think he missed any open throws today. I thought he was really good. So that one's pretty easy for me. Defensive player of the practice. I'm not. To be honest, no one necessarily jumped out to me. There's a few guys out there. Let me see if I can look through my notes and see. Marcus Walker had a nice play on a screen. A few of the defensive linemen got in there and blocked up some runs, but I don't know if anyone deserves it. I don't know if I'm going to hand it out to someone who didn't earn it. I don't know. You can't just be handing out D-pops.
Okay, so who had sacks or plays that would have been sacks in game conditions, and who had takeaways? Let's start there. As far as, if we're maybe not say a D-pop, defensive player of practice, but just guys who did make plays at various points.
No turnovers. So no one on that account. And then a sack. I want to say I think Derek Tuska had a sack. I wrote down in my notes Derek Tufka because he just looks like a tough guy out there, man. I like the way that he approaches things, and I love to see that 30 minutes after practice ended, Von Miller, Malik Reed, almost said Malik Jackson, and Derek Tuska were out there getting extra work. So maybe I give it to one of those guys. But I got to be honest. You call it the deep pop. No one popped.
Wow.
That's something that I want to see change these next couple of days, especially if the first team defense goes up against the second team offense, because of what I saw yesterday from the second team offense. Outside of the receivers that are playing with that group, there wasn't much to be impressed about. So we definitely want to see, especially going up the second teamers, that this first team pop. I need some plays. I need some turnovers.
Yeah, no turnovers was interesting, to say the least. Unless I missed something. Troy, did I miss any turnovers today? You got a defensive player of the practice?
Ryan checking in with Troy Rank from Channel 7 right now. Troy's giving him a good report right now.
Yeah, this is great broadcasting right now. By the way,
he agreed with me. He said Vaughn and Chubb were good early, but as against second string offensive linemen, interior of the defensive line made some plays. That's kind of what I was saying. Like, there were some plays out there. Our guy Nick Kosminer says Todd Davis had a good day, so pick your poison.
And Vaughn was having his way with the first team right tackles on Friday as well. So it stands to reason that he would flourish against the second team, especially because you see Elijah Wilkinson and Jake Rogers kind of shuffling back and forth. Now, the question I have for you: DeMar Dotson did get out there with the third team today. Did you notice him when he was out there and how he looked physically?
Yeah, I mean, he handled himself very well. He looked like a starting right tackle playing with the third teamer, so he was doing just fine over there. So that was nice to see. It's just a matter of time. Like I see, I'll see Elijah Wilkinson get beat over there, and I'm just like, yeah, this doesn't matter. Like he's a backup.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at on that. I think it'll be nice to see Dotson slowly work his way up, but he definitely looked like he belonged out there. That's for sure. Or maybe he didn't belong out there with the threes.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am as well. I mean, it's nothing against Elijah and Jake Rogers, but I just want to sleep well at night, and I think the Broncos want to sleep well at night. And again, you're not going to get world-beating play out DeMar Dotson, but you don't have to worry about him getting totally shredded out there against some elite pass rushers repeatedly. The sooner they get him on the first team, the better, I think.
What were we going to say, Ryan?
Oh, no, you go ahead, and then I'll finish off.
I was just going to say, when it comes to this right tackle situation, just don't overthink it. You have one guy who is a quality swing tackle in Elijah Wilkinson as a backup. You have another guy who you just signed that's a starter. Boom. There you go. And Ryan, one of the things you said was you're excited to see him, slowly work his way up. I think that's what's going to happen. But I just want to correct that and say, quickly work his way up, Broncos. Come on.
Yeah, there's no reason to waste time on this. And it's the same thing with Jerry Jeudy. Like, this stuff drives me crazy.
There's an old quote from the former longtime athletic director at Florida, Jeremy Foley, and it sums up, I think, what we all feel. What will be done eventually must be done immediately, period. Just stop messing around. Get the best guys out there on the ones. Get them learning and growing together.
Absolutely. The stubbornness of coaches can be frustrating.
Ryan, before we stop messing around on this pod, I need to know final thoughts from this practice.
Yeah, I'm going through my notes, and one guy that stood out to me that we haven't talked about yet is Nick Van Ette. It's unfair. It's totally, stereotyping. I just assumed he would just be a Jeff Hireman. Like, I'm just like, you'll look out there and there'll just be a guy, a different number who will just do Jeff Hireman things. Like, it took me about 47 seconds to be like, oh, that guy is better than Jeff Hireman. He moves better than Jeff Hireman. He looks bigger than Jeff Hireman. He looks stronger than Jeff Hireman. So I feel like it was just too easy to say, like, oh, it's a 1-to-1 replacement. You're just trading Jeff Hireman for Nick Van Ette. Hopefully he's a little more healthy. Obviously, you continue to say hopefully he's a little more healthy, but he looks like a better player to me, decidedly. And I thought he stood out today a good few times, and then Drew Lock, I think, called him a beast in the pass and the run game afterwards. So that was kind of a revelation for me. I just didn't think they improved the room that much by making that trade, and after seeing him out there in pads and getting his nose in there, I think they did improve that room quite a bit. And I think the combination of Noah Fant and Nick Van Ette can be a very good tight end combination to start things off.
Yeah, I think so too, and that's a really good point to bring him up, because the very first pass he caught yesterday when I was out there at practice, I said, 88, this guy? This is Nick Van Ette. Are we sure that's not Albert O right now? Because I totally agree. He surprised me with his athleticism and speed.
But would you say that Nick Van Ette, quote, is a monster, like Drew Lock said? I mean, I love that. I love him saying that. It makes me feel good. I'm just not really necessarily willing to go to that level of praise with him. But that being said, the glimpses I had of him on Friday, even though it was no pads that day, was just when they had him out there in the blocking game in particular, just whatever side he was on, whatever was the strong side, it just seemed steadier in run blocking, and on the occasions he stayed home in pass pro with him there helping out the tackles and offering a chip when need be. He's going to be DeMar Dotson and Garrett Bowles' best friend this year. Yeah, no,
I don't know. I think monster is a little bit much, but he's a hoss. Like, I'll give him that. He's a big dude. And again, he stood out to me in a good way across the practice. So that's exciting. I think, that just wasn't something I was expecting to see today. That, made me feel better about this Broncos team.
So you're saying he may not be a monster, maybe a beast. According to Pro Football Reference, his nickname is Baby Gronk, just like probably 10 other tight ends out there.
I thought Baby Gronk was all the younger Gronks that cycled their way through Denver over the course of their time. The Broncos got it seemed like they were getting almost every Gronk except the one that you really wanted.
Yeah. All I know is that according to Von Miller, Travis Kelce is fake Gronk head ass.
And with that, Ryan, thank you for joining us today on this first segment. And for all the live listeners out there, why don't you jump over to the podcast when we post it to get all of the questions in from the listeners? Make sure you leave those questions. And if you're listening to the podcast version, make sure to check us out in the noon hour after practices. We're breaking down every practice live. So Ryan, thanks for joining us. And Mace, let's jump into the pod.
See you guys.